When was the last time you checked your mailbox? Yesterday? Last week? What if I told you that while you weren't looking, organized criminal networks have completely hijacked the United States Postal Service? Not metaphorically, literally, they have stolen master keys that can open every mailbox in entire zip codes. In 2023 alone, mail theft attacks increased by 2,000%. That's not a typo, 2,000%. And the criminals responsible aren't just stealing birthday cards and electric bills. They're running a $63 million operation that has turned your neighborhood mailman into an unwitting accomplice to one of the largest criminal enterprises in American history. It starts with something called an arrow key. Most Americans have never heard of it, but it's the skeleton key to the entire postal system. Arrow keys are USPS master keys that can open hundreds or even thousands of mailboxes within a single zip code. Mail carriers use them to access those blue collection boxes and apartment building mail clusters you see everywhere. Here's where it gets interesting. These keys aren't just valuable to postal workers. On the dark web, a single arrow key sells for between $1,000 and $7,000. Why so expensive? Because one key can unlock an entire neighborhood's worth of mail. It's like having a master key to every house on your street, except legal. In 2024, criminals stole 3,437 of these master keys nationwide. That's nearly 10 keys stolen every single day. And once they have them, they own your mail system. The Postal Service calls this mail theft, but that's misleading. This isn't theft. It's hijacking. They've hijacked the infrastructure. Here's how the operation works step by step. Step 1. Key acquisition. Criminal networks target mail carriers during their routes, sometimes through robbery, sometimes through bribery, often through simple theft from postal facilities. The keys are poorly tracked and frequently go missing for weeks before anyone notices. Step 2. Territory mapping. Once they have an arrow key, criminals methodically map out every accessible mailbox in the coverage area. They know which apartments get government checks, which neighborhoods receive business correspondence, which routes have the highest volume of financial mail. Step 3. The harvest. They don't hit every mailbox at once. That would draw attention. Instead, they operate like a business. Scheduled collections, quality control. They're looking for specific items, checks, tax documents, credit cards, identity information. Step 4. The money laundering. Stolen checks get washed, chemically altered to change the recipient and amount. A $50 utility payment becomes a $5,000 check made out to a criminal alias. Government benefits checks are especially valuable because they're high dollar and predictably scheduled. The sophistication level rivals any Wall Street operation. These aren't opportunistic criminals grabbing random mail. They're running systematic enterprises with supply chains, specialized roles, and profit margins that would make Fortune 500 companies jealous. Let me give you a specific example that shows just how massive this has become. In Los Angeles, investigators uncovered a single criminal network that had stolen over $63 million through mail theft operations. They had corrupted postal employees, established money laundering fronts, and created fake identities to cash thousands of altered checks. But here's the shocking part. This wasn't some sophisticated international crime syndicate. It was mostly local criminals who had figured out that stealing mail was easier and more profitable than any other crime. Think about it from their perspective. Rob a bank, you might get $5,000 and face 20 years in prison. But steal one arrow key and you have access to millions of dollars worth of financial documents with almost no security measures stopping you. The risk-to-reward ratio is completely backwards. Mail theft has become the perfect crime because nobody was paying attention to it. As reports of mail theft exploded across the country, the United States Postal Service faced a choice: acknowledge the crisis or pretend everything was fine. They chose denial. Internal USPS communications revealed that postal management actively discouraged reporting mail theft incidents. Local postmasters were told to handle cases quietly to avoid negative publicity. Some facilities stopped tracking arrow key losses altogether. Meanwhile, criminal networks were sharing information about which postal routes had the worst security, which mail carriers were most vulnerable, and which neighborhoods offered the highest returns. The criminals had better intelligence about postal operations than the Postal Service itself. By 2023, the situation had become so dire that postal workers began refusing to work certain routes. Mail carriers were being robbed in broad daylight, sometimes at gunpoint, specifically for their arrow keys. But rather than address the security failures, USPS management blamed the victims. Mail carriers were told they weren't being vigilant enough. Customers whose mail was stolen were told it was their responsibility to check their mailboxes more frequently. The consequences of this systematic hijacking extend far beyond stolen birthday money. Elderly Americans who rely on Social Security checks find their benefits vanishing into criminal bank accounts. Small businesses lose payroll checks and customer payments. Families discover their tax refunds, insurance settlements, and medical reimbursements have been intercepted and cached by strangers. But the most insidious impact is identity theft. Every piece of mail contains personal information that criminals can use to open credit accounts, apply for loans, or file fraudulent tax returns. One stolen arrow key can compromise the financial security of thousands of people simultaneously. The Federal Trade Commission estimates that mail-related identity theft has increased by 400% since 2019. Credit monitoring services report that mail theft is now the leading source of new identity theft cases. Entire communities have become financially toxic zones where banks refuse to issue checks and businesses won't mail sensitive documents. In late 2023, Congress finally held hearings on the mail theft crisis. Postal Service officials testified that they were taking the issue seriously and implementing enhanced security measures. Those measures? They decided to start changing locks more frequently and asked mail carriers to be more careful with their keys. That's like responding to a pandemic by suggesting people wash their hands more often. The criminals had already adapted to every security measure the Postal Service could implement. Some states tried to address the problem independently. California passed laws increasing penalties for mail theft. Texas launched task forces targeting mail theft rings. But these efforts were treating symptoms, not the disease. As long as arrow keys existed and the postal system remained fundamentally unchanged, criminals would continue exploiting it. Why did this happen now? Why didn't previous generations face systematic mail hijacking? 3 factors created the perfect storm. First, the rise of digital banking made physical checks more valuable to criminals. While most people moved to electronic payments, government agencies, insurance companies, and businesses still mail millions of checks annually. Second, the dark web created efficient markets for stolen keys and financial instruments. Criminals could now easily sell their tools and coordinate their operations across state lines. Third, the Postal Service was already struggling financially and couldn't invest in security upgrades. They were trying to deliver more mail with fewer resources and less oversight. Criminal networks recognized this vulnerability before law enforcement did. They industrialized mail theft while everyone was focused on cybercrime and terrorism. As I create this video, the hijacking continues. Right now, criminals with stolen arrow keys are systematically emptying mailboxes across America. The 2024 statistics show the problem is accelerating, not improving. More keys stolen, more mail theft attacks, more victims. The Postal Service's latest solution? They're asking Americans to use informed delivery, an email service that tells you what mail to expect. Essentially, they want you to do their job for them. Meanwhile, the criminals have moved beyond just mail theft. They're now targeting postal vehicles, breaking into processing facilities, and corrupting postal employees at industrial scale. What started as opportunistic mail theft has evolved into a systematic hijacking of America's postal infrastructure. And the people responsible for protecting that infrastructure have proven either unable or unwilling to stop it. This isn't a story about crime, it's a story about institutional failure. The United States Postal Service had decades to recognize that their security model was obsolete. They could have upgraded their key systems, improved tracking protocols, or implemented basic anti-theft measures. Instead, they chose to ignore the problem until criminal networks had completely infiltrated their operations. Today, checking your mailbox has become a gamble. Every piece of mail represents a potential security breach. Every check you receive could be intercepted, Every financial document could end up in criminal hands. The criminals didn't just steal your mail, they stole your trust in one of America's oldest and most essential institutions. The next time you walk to your mailbox, remember, you're not just collecting your mail anymore. You're participating in a hijacked system that criminal networks have learned to exploit better than the government agency that's supposed to protect it. The question isn't whether your mail is safe. The question is, how long will it take for everyone else to realize it isn't? If you want to stay ahead of the stories that will shock the world before they become mainstream news, subscribe now, because the next story we're investigating will make this mail heist look like child's play.